So Patrick Dunleavy, Tony Travers, both of the LSE. Big night tonight. Are we seeing a return back to two-party politics?
I think we're probably not returning to conventional two-party politics. I mean, the idea of two-party politics, derived from the 50s, the 60s, when the Conservative plus Labour vote would be as high as 97%. At the last two elections, it's been 65, 66%. Tonight, it might return to 80, 79 or 80%. But that is not, I suspect, a return to a big Conservative bloc and a big Labour bloc of die-hard supporters plus a few floating voters. What we've got here is the overlay of lots of other movements in politics, the crumbling of the UKIP vote, a new vote perhaps attracted by Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, but it doesn't feel to me like a return to classic two-party politics, rather the use of these two parties in this particular voting political system for people to achieve the sum total of their political needs.
I think what you need to bear in mind is that in the last few years, two political parties in Britain which were getting very large votes, the Liberals, Democrats were getting 23.5% of the votes in 2010. Then they went into coalition with the Conservatives, which effectively was a kind of way of committing electoral suicide from which they have not yet recovered. And then the Brexiteers in UKIP went into coalition with the right wing of the Conservative Party for the Brexit campaign, and now Theresa May has gobbled up their voters, and they again are practically have committed suicide. So when two big parties go AWOL, of course that means that the traditional major parties, Conservative and Labour, are going to do better, and this is a wobble towards them doing better. But even if you go back to something, let's say, underlying, like the May elections this year, the Conservatives got 38% of the vote, Labour got 27%. Put that together, that's 65%. That's less than two-thirds of the vote went to those two parties. And the Liberal Democrats in the local elections got 18%. So the Liberal Democrats are coming back. They're not going to come back this election in a big way, but they might do a lot better than expected in some particular seats.
Yeah, and I'd add to that I think what we're going to see in this election, regardless of the final result, is big surges of votes for the Conservatives in places they wouldn't have expected to get surges before because of this shift from UKIP, so in seats in the East Midlands, West Midlands, parts of the North, I think we'll see that, whereas in London and the South, maybe it goes the other way, or at least there's a much smaller shift of votes. So what that suggests is not so much a return to two-party politics as a change in voting loyalties, which, as Patrick's implied, may not be permanent. I think that's what you meant. I just think it's a
kind of two-party wobble, for sure, or a wobble back towards two-partyism. But how long it will last, how permanent it is, what it really signifies, given the dramatic context of Brexit and given the impromptu nature of the general election, I think it's all a little bit up in the air on that.
And I think one thing that, whatever happens again during this election, that would then start to tell us whether this is a fixed pattern is if the Conservatives won and Labour lost, let's just assume that for a second, what happens to the Labour Party at that point? Does it carry on with the same kind of leadership now, or does it try to recreate itself with new, different leadership? And how does that then affect the two-party vote going forward 3, 4, 5 years out? What then happens to the smaller parties?
Yeah. And also, when you're assessing the performance of the two main party leaders, bear in mind that 1 in 8 of the votes, that's 12% of the votes, is more or less up for grabs. And the party is self-destructed. Its leader, Nigel Farage, has gone away. It's had various leadership coups, and it's had a very confused, checkered history. It's lost all its council seats, I think.
All but one this year. All but one.
So, it's in a very cataclysmic end spiral because it's one big issue. Brexit has gone away and its leader has gone away. So if Mrs May gets 44%, that's 6% more than David Cameron got in 2015, but it's just half of the UKIP vote going to the Conservatives. And if Jeremy Corbyn gets, say, 36%, that means he's just got 4 or 5% of the UKIP vote himself. So those aren't particularly great achievements. They're just things that are happening off stage. So we need to discount for that in assessing whether or not the leaders have made any real impact.
And I think what this tells us is that as soon as the election is over, tomorrow morning, there will be all manner of analyses of where the UKIP vote really went, how many of it went back to the Conservatives, how many to Labour, what happened to the Lib Dems, and so on, because that will begin to give us a clue as to how stable this apparent new two-party vote really is. And that, I suspect it won't look as stable as it appears if it adds up to 80%.
And of course, remember, the SNP are likely to survive as the dominant party still in Scotland, even though they'll lose some seats to the Conservatives and some to Labour probably.
I suppose in Scotland we're going to see potentially the emergence of a new two-party system. I mean, that's not worthy of not commenting on, or at least a new challenger to the SNP power, at least put it that way, if the Conservatives do indeed overtake Labour as they've already overtaken
Labour.
Yeah, sure.
I think what's happening is that Labour was really looking completely out of it in Scotland, and that's one thing that you can definitely say for Jeremy Corbyn. It would have been very difficult to imagine an Ed Miliband figure pulling it back in Scotland. He has pulled it back. He's kind of pretty well even Stevens with the Conservatives, they're Labour and Conservatives. They're not really challenging the SNP. The SNP under first past the post will probably do pretty well.
Oh yeah, they'll do well. Perhaps they're just a new challenger party. In Westminster MP terms, I mean, they had hardly any. They only had 3 seats. The other three parties only had 3 seats between them after the last election. It's likely that one of those 3 will probably end up with slightly a larger Westminster total.
And it'll be interesting to see how many Scottish Conservative MPs there are, because they could be, if it was close, they could be quite crucial. But we probably think it's not going to be too close.
Yeah. So there we are. It's going to be an interesting night for many reasons, one of which will be seeing the future of the two-party, or possibly not two-party, system.